So it's free, and if you've got an NVIDIA card, anything recent, it'll do it.
Yeah, I actually bought a new like gaming rig about 5-6 months ago, because I had an old computer which was probably 5 or 6 years old, and of course I was pretty eager to get a hold of a new computer, but of course all the NVIDIA cards have been sold out for so long that I caved and bought a new AMD card instead.
Those AMD for gaming though, those AMDs are supposed to be really good.
Yeah, I can't actually remember the type of card that I bought, but I try. It works in all new games and runs it in full resolution, so it was at least a big improvement from like the old computer that I had, which was probably 6 years old anyways.
Yeah.
Welcome, Jason, to the group. So it looks like we've got all our panelists. For anyone who's joined us, we are actually in pre-show mode still here, which is coming to you live. If you look back at the calendar invite, it actually is scheduled to begin at 1/4 past the hour. So right now you're kind of seeing the behind the scenes of the Unplugged as we warm up our guitars and tune our amps and all that good stuff.
What are we talking about? Wait a minute. I didn't prepare anything like that. Come on.
Come on, Jeff. You didn't get the memo? You're on tambourine.
Oh, I can do that. I want to be on the cowbell. I want to be on the cowbell.
Everybody wants to be on cowbell, right?
I know. Because it all needs more cowbell.
Marius, are you in the NVIDIA community?
Yeah. Well, at least I used to be part of the what's it called, the NVIDIA advisor community. Yeah, but that was probably 2 years ago.
They couldn't hook you up.
No. No, I think when I ordered the new computer, I think I had all the hardware in the shopping bag on the online store that I bought, but it's still like, okay, I think I ordered the 3090 card, high end, but it kept pushing the date before it's actually getting available, and I see it's still not available. So didn't NVIDIA actually put a ban so that you can't use those cards for Bitcoin mining anymore?
Oh,
yeah, right now it's a software, and I've heard people have gotten around it, but I mean that not surprising there.
Now, why would they do that?
Because all the Bitcoin miners are buying up all the new NVIDIA cards.
So they just got more than enough demand in is it the computer chip shortage thing going on? Or?
I mean, I think so. That's part of it, but it's also when you look at the prices of Bitcoin and everything else, it's it's worth getting every video card you can to set them up and go.
Yeah, I just wondered why NVIDIA wouldn't want them buying them. A sale's a sale to me if I'm selling.
I think they're more eager to sell to the gaming community than because now they have a bunch of angry gamers.
But they manufacture their own chips too, don't they?
I don't think it's so much even that they want to sell to the gaming community. I mean, because really, they typically don't sell direct, right? I mean, MSI, you got all these third parties that take it. It's the fact that they're getting dinged for the shortage. And so, from a publicity standpoint, a PR standpoint, they're in a pretty crappy position from that standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course, opens up a lot of possibilities for AMD as well to take more of the market share.
And they are coming out with specific cards for mining that are designed, whatever they had to do to get for it to be a mining only card.
So Marius, James already chimed in and said you need OBS to have some fun with your green screen.
Yes. So like as I said yesterday, right now this is only to hide away all the dirty laundry and stuff that's happening in the background because I'm stuck in the living room downstairs in the basement. So that's totally true. I need to do an e-learning session on OBS just to learn a little bit more about that, because I have some plans sometime in the future to start working more on like video podcasts and so on. So it's in the starting phases. First part is to get the green screen right, and then learn the software.
So Jeff, you back from the lake?
Yeah.
Is that where you
Yep.
were?
No, not the lake, but my office away from the office. We've got a seasonal RV, not an RV, but a campsite. We've got a big, the glamping thing going on. So, but it's nice because I've got a WeBoost signal booster, so I get really good internet over the cell but as with everything, it's limited to 100 gigs, so I can't be doing a ton of video conferencing because it sucks all the bandwidth.
Yeah, that Elon Musk thing, what's it called?
Starlink.
Starlink. It is, people are getting those units now. You can see reviews of them on YouTube.
And they've got some in Michigan already. Actually, not too far from where I live. The biggest problem is, so there's a couple of problems. One is, after doing some research, the skyline needs to effectively be wide open.
Oh,
if there's even a branch in the way, you will lose coverage.
it's because the satellites are so low, I guess.
Well, they're so low and there's not enough of them yet. I mean, there's only 2,000 up there, 1,500, something like that, which sounds like a lot, but they're really small and they're trying to get them.
I need to cover a lot of space, I guess. But what's the bandwidth like?
Depends, is what I'm hearing. Anywhere from really, really crappy DSL speeds up to 200.
Yeah, the one guy I saw reviewing, I don't know where.
Yeah, it just depends on where the satellites are. It depends on your view of the satellites.
So you might be standing like this with the
and there might be 10 other people around you that are attached like to that cluster of satellites. And it's
But for the right people that have suffered for nothing. I think the cost is like $500 to get you the hardware, and then the ongoing bills right now is around $100 a month. That's subject to change though.
Yeah,
and it's truly unlimited right now. That's the other thing, is that it's truly, there's no cap.
Yeah, but the problem is that one, getting it, because I'm signed up too, because I wanted to bring it down to the camper and hook it up and go. But as I was looking around the other day, it's like, I don't think this is going to work because we're too close to tree lines. And, we'll get it while it's, like directly above us. But as the sun starts to go down, we're going to lose connectivity. So it's,
Jeff commented and said, depends on your latitude. Upper latitudes get great speed. They're still launching in the lower latitudes. And he said, as the lower latitudes get populated, speeds will increase.
Yeah, so where I'm at, like if you look at the map, because of who actually has the Starlinks and using them, the ones in Michigan are actually real close, like a county away from where I live. But where the camper is, I'm within that area that actually has the satellite or the Starlink setup and everything. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I may cancel the pre-order because I'm not sure it's going to work consistently enough. But we'll see.
Yeah, James said I think if I'm reading this right, his son has the sat train in the middle of Georgia, and he said it's better for him since no fiber, cable, DSL options on his horse farm. So
yeah, absolutely. And that's going to be the big thing. And that's why I saw Viasat is suing to get the Starlink launches dropped or stopped because they want an environmental review. And I'm like, well, what? You can't compete, so you sue them to stop from launching? That's great.
Yeah.
If you can't beat them, sue them. Isn't that the common?
Yeah. I guess
Come the
so.
way to do business.
I guess
When
so.
you can't compete, you sue them or you buy them.
Yep. So for those that
They can't buy SpaceX. So
PSA real quick, for those of that started to join us, we do small talk here for another handful of minutes, and then we'll be off on today's subject. As you'll note, if you haven't seen one of these before, the time for today's presentation starts at 12:15, and we intentionally join a few minutes early, not only to do sound checks, but to talk about whatever we want to talk about. We had no idea we'd be talking about this, and that's fine. So don't be confused. We'll get things started a little formally on today's subject in a minute.
Yeah, a little bit earlier, Jason, someone chimed in, I think it was Mike, asked about getting a copy of the recording, and we are recording today's session, so we'll make that available as soon as possible. We post that to our community website, which is community.liquidware.com, and we'll also send that out in a link via email as well. Normally, we'll get it out maybe later today or early tomorrow at the latest, so keep an eye out for a link to that recording if for some reason you got to drop off or you wanted to share it with someone else.
Yep. Great. Cantana still works well too in a lot of areas if you can't get Starlink.
well, that's what I was thinking too. You know, tin can, string.
Did you ever use a Cantana? Literally, so you could
talk to somebody.
Well, you know the PC MCIA cards, I think that's what they were called, that went into your laptop.
Yeah.
And it could be a Wi-Fi card, and some of them had a place for an external antenna. And you get a little cable, and now I'm going back about 17, 18 years, and maybe some of our audience even never heard this, but you could get the little cable and make a Cantana, get a coffee can or Pringles can even, and put a copper receiver in it, or just buy one off of eBay back in the day for like $20. Someone else had made for you with the right length, the optimal length. And you could just get Wi-Fi from any open Wi-Fi access point by pointing it in the direction of where you thought the Wi-Fi signal was coming from. And I actually, on several road trips, traveled with my Cantana. So hotels, Toronto, Canada, actually had a client up there, and I was in town early and just went down the street and needed some internet connection. And of course, I'm in a foreign country, even though it's over the border. Maybe not. Maybe that doesn't count where you are, Jeff, since you're so far north. You probably get a signal from Canada there, but I could get a Wi-Fi signal, and you wouldn't have to pay for Wi-Fi because many people had open Wi-Fi access points. More so back 17 years ago, before they understood you should really lock those down. But I think I still got a Cantana. That would be a fun thing to have on my desk for the next Unplugged.
Jeff Rayford said he remembers those, Jason, and James Smith, I don't know if it's a relation to yours or not there, but says, yes, Jason, let's get our walkers out before getting online. And he said, did you use a coffee can?
Mine was made to one that it was so cheap to buy one on eBay. I just ordered one. I think it was a coffee can.
There you go.
The Pringles can had the bad feature of just being able to be crushed, in your luggage or something. So I didn't go that direction.
Well, and it wasn't really a tin can. It was more just cardboard.
Just oil lined. Yeah.
It had some like metal alloy inside, right? Just to bounce the signals back and forth to.
Yeah.
Gathers it in and brings it in. There's different types of names for antennas. I don't know if that one's qualifies as a Yagi or what. Someone in the audience will know.
Well, I think if we're going to go back that far, I mean, it's like putting tinfoil on your rabbit ears, right?
I remember hearing about
Am I the only one that gets that joke? Seriously, come on.
No one on the call. If they don't know what a Cantana is, they're not going to know what rabbit ears are.
I thought you guys.
Hey, listen, I know what rabbit ears are. I had never heard of Cantana until today. I learned something new.
Speaking of old, isn't it a birthday for Mr. Jeff Pitsch today?
Almost. Big 5-0.
We promised him a birthday song today, right? So we have to do that at the end.
Big 5-0 again?
No. That's what I should have done. If I had good lighting, as you can tell, I'm looking a little orange, I guess. I pulled down my screen, which that's the ball to pull it down. I was going to put like birthday stuff behind me, but it wouldn't look good.
Let's go ahead and make formal introductions now, since we're 15 minutes after Jeff, you want to keep going and just introduce yourself since you've already told people your age?
My social security number is, and my bank account. I'm Jeff Pitsch. I've been a long time community member working since the WinFrame days. Yeah, if the 50 doesn't date me, that does. One of the original CTPs, Microsoft MVP for 5 years. Been just my niche has been EUC in one way or the other. And the last decade started with Unidesk. And so that got me into layering. And then that has grown and evolved into other tech, but we still umbrella it under the layering terminology. And it's funny because the way Unidesk used to be was not how it is, because it was originally a provisioning system. And then it moved into image management, but everyone kind of lumped it in with this dynamic delivery of applications. So that's been kind of my area of expertise, I guess, would be the best way to put it.
Yep. So thank you for being on with us. And Marius, if you want to give us an introduction of yourself?
Yeah, sure. So Marius Sanbu, a bit younger than Jeff, so haven't been that long in the game, but been part of the CDP community, well, former CDP at least, still part of the Azure program, and also from VMware perspective. And I've, these days I'm mostly working with cloud-related projects, building VDI services for customers in public cloud. And I just was thinking back, when did I start working with like layering as a technology? And I think it was 5 or 6 years ago when someone asked me, okay, can you have a session on application layering versus application virtualization on a Citrix user group session here in Norway, which I lived. So I think that was the introduction that I had. So in that session, I focused looking into all the different products and technologies and try to give an understanding to the audience. Okay, what's the main difference between these different products and technologies? And of course, it's gotten a long way since I started working with those products. I think about 5 or 6 years ago.
Great, and we're glad to have you here as well. I'm Jason Smith, and I'm Vice President of Alliances and Product Marketing over at Liquidware. The Alliances part is somewhat new, although I was handling some of that even up until recently, and now it all falls under me. And I've been with Liquidware since the first year it started, 2012, and largely across all products, but also had an affinity at first for the profile and then the layering portion. But Stratosphere not to be left out with the leading assessment and user experience that we do there. So I'll moderate alongside Ray. Ray, you want to give yourself an introduction there too, and then tell them the ground rules?
Sure. So I'm Ray Swanson. I'm Director of Marketing. I'm kind of the man behind the curtain, but in front of the camera. I'll be monitoring today's questions that you guys put in the chat and or Q&A window. As we see questions come in, I'll reach out to you, see if you want to be unmuted. If you would like to be unmuted, we will be happy to unmute you and allow you to ask the question yourself and have some interaction with our panelists. If you just want me to ask the question for you, we're happy to do that as well. But today's session is all about interaction. So please ask your questions via chat and or questions, and we will make sure that we get to all the questions as time allows for us today. So with that, Jason, you want to take us through today's discussion?
Sure. Yeah, this unplugged format, we started it over a year ago at the start of COVID because we don't get to see each other right now with no big industry events going on. But that's changing soon. You may even see us at HIMSS in August. I don't even know if I've told Ray that yet, but we're looking at doing that with alongside IGEL, and we're an IGEL ready partner. So we may actually be doing our first event if HIMSS is still in person. HIMSS stands for Healthcare Information Management, and that's one of the biggest shows in the industry. So, but until then, we have this unplugged format, and it's fun. You know why? Because we don't have to prepare any PowerPoints, any of us, to do this, and that's the thing we usually dread. And you don't like, as an audience member, probably don't like death by PowerPoint either. And so We may share out a few slides just to show you our talking points if we've got something that can get our point across, but there's little formalities here. As Ray said, we love audience participation, and I see those audience numbers continuing to go up. So today's topic is about layering, and specifically we'll get back to application layering. But the first question for my panelists is, could you describe when you first heard of layering and what it was proposed to solve in the industry, in your own words?
So mine
Should
would
I
have
go
been,
first?
yeah, you can go. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no. When I first was introduced to it, it was essentially like, okay, we had like OS imaging or like virtual machine imaging in place, so that way you can have a single image to make it easy to update the operating system itself. So when I started looking into layering, it was essentially okay, or essentially wrapping the application in its own kind of image that will be automatically like Lego building blocks on top of the image, so that way you can much easily upgrade applications without it making any changes in the underlying OS.
Jeff?
Yeah, so mine goes back to Unidesk, right? I mean, that was their big thing when Ron Oglesby called me up and said, hey, we want to bring you on board. We've got this product. And I was like, all right. So, but at the time, like I said, layering, God, my camera's gotten really bad. Layering was really about provisioning. And what it was, the separation of the operating system from literally everything else. And the way it worked was actually quite brilliant in that you'd have all these various VMDKs, because it was originally vSphere only. And instead of creating just a big VMDK, the filter driver would actually redirect from the OS within the OS layer, and there was a composited image that was just enough to get Windows to boot to call the filter drivers to then call the OS layer, which was a separate disk located somewhere else. And as users were using their desktops, there was hardware, virtual hardware, but there was never a full-blown image deployed to the users. So if you wanted to, it was really great because we could demonstrate all of this within 5 minutes. I've got an app, I need to update it, I need to get it out to users. Within 5 minutes, the users are back up and running with a new application. That changed with Unidesk 4, which is the Citrix App Layering today, which is more of an image management system with the elastic layers built kind of into it. And layering, in my opinion, has very much gotten away from its original meaning. Clearly, because most products, App Volumes has done it. App Layering obviously still does, but every other product that I would consider under this umbrella doesn't do layering at all. Not in the way we think of, to use Shrek, an onion with layers on top, on top, on top, on top.
Yeah. So the first time I heard of layering, so Liquidware started in 2000. Did I say 12 earlier? I meant we've been around 12 years. We started in 2009, and right away we knew the guys over at our management team knew the guys over at Unidesk, and we were partners with them because if you think about what we had at the time, that first year we had Profile Unity and we had Stratosphere as our two main solutions to the market. And even in that first year we did. So for that first year or so, we would have talks with Unidesk about jointly selling our solutions together, and we actually had a few deals that we worked on together to help solve things for customers. You know, Profile Unity makes the profile stick. It also gives you full user environment management for policies, for registry settings, and then Unidesk could control the layers all the way from the OS to the apps and everything else. And so we did partner with them, and as we went along, we started being asked, and since so many years, I think statute of limitations are up, we were strong partners with Dell, and they were doing work with Unidesk, or at least talking to Unidesk and talking to us. And they said, "You guys are doing such a great job of the profile part. Have you looked at layering in the OS and OS patches? Because you're bringing that back. Why couldn't you bring that, OS patches back?" We had meetings internally, and we talked about where we wanted to go as an organization, as a company. And we liked some of the things that Unidesk was doing, quite frankly, but we also saw where image management had made big leaps and bounds. PVS had just come on strong in those years with Citrix too, and it was starting to be an excellent way for image management, especially for your base image. And so that set the bar in the industry, we felt like, for image management. And we said, you know what, we want to bring back just the application only, not the full layer, not the whole cake, not OS patches, not the OS and changes in that, but just applications. The same way we bring back, with a different technology, profiles are brought back just in time, and it helps with the non-persistent use case. And so we had a POC even in 2011, I believe it was, with a version of that, which was with almost embarrassed to say, but with symbolic links that made an application come back and work. And it was plagued with difficulties. So within even those first several months before it was fully shipping and everything, we scrapped that idea and went with a filter driver, a system filter driver, which would allow us to containerize and capture an application, only the application, onto a VHD. Later we supported VMDK as well. And then we would use that filter driver to bring it back. And we thought, how do we distribute these packages now? We might need registry fix-ups. We might need a special script to run after the fact, so you don't have to open back up the package. And we're like, Profile Unity is the perfect solution already that can do this, because we have context-aware filters and everything. So that's how Flex App became part of Profile Unity. And truth be told, if you're interested more in one than the other, you can discuss that with us, because you might think you have things solved. We usually, and 99% of the time, customers say Flex App and Profile Unity is great, but they're sometimes more interested in Flex App, and that's just fine. Sometimes they're more interested in Profile Unity, but the two came together, and that's how we became an alternative in the market. And we focused on the Flex App part only on applications, and we never have, and I can't say we never will, but I don't believe we ever will look at the OS and for OS patches. And so that term elastic layering that Unidesk was going after, us coming to market a little bit later, we had the sight of what had happened in the market and how things had quickly evolved, and we felt like just applications was the way to go, and that's what we still focus on today. And it's really, to Jeff's point, we've thought about not even calling it layering. We attach a VHD or VMDK, and we make that application work with the filter driver that's in the OS system, and we turn it on for a group of individuals at a time. And that's the way Flex App works. And we capture those through a packaging console. And we're going to have significantly new, I say we attach it from a remote location. And a little later in this webinar, I'd like to lay on you some of the things we've got coming out within even about 40 days from now, where we're going beyond that box. But that's when I first heard about layering. It was Unidesk for sure. But then we actively got involved as Liquidware, as being, I feel like, still to this day, an innovator in that space.
Yeah, the thing with Unidesk was, when we moved over to 4 and the image management, one of the big things we had heard was that people really just wanted to be able to deliver the applications. That's what they wanted, and tying it to the image management, to be perfectly honest, was just not received well. And especially if you think back to that time and how slow it was to create those images, the amount of fast disk you needed underneath, because it's literally, you create a VHD from you copy the OS, and then you're literally writing to that disk. one layer at a time and building on top of that. You know, I think if we had come out with what you guys did, that it would have been much, much better received than what it was, because that's really what a lot of people wanted. You know, they had the image management already. They just want to be able to basically do an app V, but not have to go through the hoops to get an app V app working.
Yeah. And I'm not bad mouthing Unidesk. They were initial innovator, and Citrix bought them for a reason, right? And but it has become more, it seems, image management as a whole is what they do. And the idea of breaking out individual apps the way we do it and making them work across OSs, you never have to repackage them, and that's not the same as what we've got. We actually have joint customers that use the Citrix App Layering technology to help manage the base images, and maybe they have some apps in there too, like Office and some other things that everybody needs, and then they bring in Flex App to bring in just the application layers. So we've spoken about Unidesk, Citrix App Layering. We've spoken about Flex App a bit. Marius, you have specific experience with app volumes, though, I believe. Could you tell us your thoughts and feelings on that? And so that's an offering from VMware. It's included in some licenses, the enterprise licenses, but not in the other tiers of licenses.
Yeah, sure. So one of the first, I would say, layering projects that I was working on, because we were looking into, this was a cloud-related project anyway. And of course, the problem that we saw with Unidesk, and this was, I think it was a little bit 2 months after Citrix bought them, is that they needed to integrate on a hypervisor level to be able to do that type of OS-based imaging. So what we saw that, okay, app volumes, they have a more agent-based approach. So of course, they can provide hypervisor integration, but they also have an agent-based, and essentially having an agent running in the OS to actually mount the VHD files that you have from one file share or another. So we use that in combination, as you said, with the FinApp, which is the app virtualization technology that they have. So of course, for us, we saw that, okay, app volume was a better approach because they don't have the hypervisor dependency. So that means that they can run in any cloud environment as long as you have Windows. But again, we saw later on that, okay, there are some specific service or functionality that app volumes didn't meet in terms of requirements, so we needed to look elsewhere as well.
Because, you got these two
we haven't seen a lot of, huh?
Yeah, the two versions of app volumes, I think some people are confused about. Can you speak to that? There's a 4.0 version.
I don't remember the difference as well. So they've made a change. I'm not sure if it was the latest version. I actually did a blog post, but I have a Dory from Finding Nemo memory, so I don't remember everything that happened a while ago. But one thing that I do know is that they're actually bundling this as part of their cloud service now as well. So you have like the central or the management components as part of VMware Cloud. So I'm guessing they're also moving in that direction as well and providing this as part of their cloud-based services.
So we've talked about the players in the market right now, at least what are likely the top three. We're willing to speak to any of the others that you might think of, but a lot of people have heard about MSIX being a new format, and I want to be clear that FlexApp supports MSIX format. You can take an MSIX and you can turn it into a FlexApp if you wish, and we can attach it. And the benefits there, sometimes it's faster, the way it attaches and plays back to the endpoint. We've seen in our own testing. And also, we believe like our compatibility rating complements that, because MSIX may not have the best compatibility rate right now in anyway, and we are any format with FlexApp. You guys have any experience with MSIX or hearing anything firsthand from any of your peers?
Well, I think we need to define, exactly what MSIX is. And MSIX is what Microsoft wants packaging to move to. So instead of MSIs or setup.exe, you'd just be installing MSIX packages. MSIX is, when they first announced it, kind of like everyone, right? Full of grandiose promises. It was, you were going to be able to like literally move the virtualization up and down. You want to fully virtualize that, you slide it all the way up. You want it to interact completely with the OS as apps do now, you slide it all the way down and you can have all these different, but it hasn't turned out that way, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But MSIX is the future of packaging if Microsoft has their way. The downside is that it's not built for what they refer to as legacy applications, which is pretty much all the applications we use today. And the older apps you go, the less compatibility you're going to get. The compatibility is not there. The other part of it is that it does do partial isolation of the user side registries, I believe is what it is. But basically think of your store apps, which are MSIX, if I remember correctly. That's what you would be looking at right there. So not only do you need to get them in a legacy app repackaged into MSIX, which is not nearly even remotely close to 50% success rate, but when it runs, it needs to be able to handle that isolation and other apps that may or may not be talking to it. And there's switches and things you can do. But that's MSIX. And, like I said, from a compatibility standpoint, not even counting the app attach piece of it, MSIX is simply packaging. And the way that it delivers through app attach, or I'm going to guess because I didn't play with this directly yet, the way that FlexApp delivers it is it's MSIX, but MSIX is basically a zip file. You can rename it and unzip it and play with it. But what app attach does is it unzips the zip file to the VHD, and then that's what's being delivered is the VHD with an unzipped file system, which is what FlexApp does, which is what App Volumes does, which is what AppV essentially is. So it's an interesting technology. I don't think it's there yet, mainly because we all run apps today. We don't run apps from the future. So it's a difficult position Microsoft is in.
Yeah, Marius, thoughts on MSIX or App Attach, either way?
Well, I agree with Jeff, but I think it was Tim Mangan, one of the gurus behind FV, which did a compatibility scorecard comparing, okay, what kind of functionality does MSIX have today compared to FV, which is now announced end of support in, was it 2025 or 26 something? Yeah. And of course, you see, as you said, as Jeff mentions, like 40-50% compatibility in terms of the same functionality. And when Microsoft announced MSIX, I think it was at Ignite 2 years ago, they said that, okay, this is going to be a journey. It's going to take a long time before developers and applications are, let's say, packaged in this new format. But as of today, I haven't encountered any ISVs that have been delivering their application as an MSIX package to us. And Microsoft also said that, okay, they plan to bundle Office 365 apps as an MSIX package, and that was also announced during when they revealed MSIX, but this has still not happened yet. So I actually looked it up yesterday, and I saw a forum post saying that, okay, this is something they're working on. It's probably going to be later this year anyway.
So the most popular Office productivity suite in the world by Microsoft themselves is not an MSIX format yet.
No, it's still more similar to FV than it is to MSIX. So I think it's hard to drive this kind of adoption because it's saying, as Jeff mentioned, it's like hallelujah and everything, and you need to use this new format. It's going to be awesome, and they need to get more developers on board to make this. But of course, it's kind of hard for large enterprises to make a jump from AppV to just this new packaging format, with if only 50% of the application is going to be working.
Well, I think with what you guys have said, the message is pretty loud and clear. It's here to stay. Microsoft will make sure that it is a force going forward, but it doesn't cover your EXE, MSI formats. It doesn't cover the other formats or the compatibility ratings. As for Flex App, we'll continue to support MSIX, and we'll continue to increase functionality for it, and we will continue to support all formats. So that's out of the box today, where our functionality works with 90% or better of applications to containerize those onto a VHD or VHDX and bring those in addition to your base image, so you keep your base images clean.
But let's be honest too, is that it's not just dependent on the vendors coming out with an MSIX package. It's also dependent on enterprises either moving to a new app that supports MSIX or upgrading to a version that is MSIX. And as we all know, enterprises, companies don't like to change. I mean, that's why we still have Windows 2000 servers out there. I've heard people talk about NT. You know, it's those, and they are running mission critical. Company could go down in a blaze of glory if this app isn't working. So, you know, that's the fight that Microsoft has. It's not just getting the developers behind it. It's also convincing companies and users that they need to move forward, which has always been the problem that Microsoft has.
Windows NT stands for new technology, right?
Yeah.
So it's always good.
NT 351, baby, come on.
It's always good. It's always new technology.
It is.
It doesn't matter.
You're not going to find any vulnerabilities on those older operating systems anyway, so you're pretty immune to any ransomware attacks and so on. So it's a safe bet.
Right. So layers have been tethered, right? Largely tethered to connected drive. Am I right in saying that across the board, where you've got what app volumes is dependent mostly on a VMDK upstream somewhere else? Unidesk, you're dependent on speaking to your constant server to look for the layers, right?
For the Elastic, yes.
For the Elastic layers, yep. So we've been asked by customers for quite some time, could you take a Flex App layer offline? And so this is what I'd like to tell the audience, is that we have a new feature of Flex App coming. This is not a new product. This is a new way to run Flex Apps that will actually allow you to take those offline, and we plan to have that in the next 40 days. Now, the feature is not only for that use case, right? And it does need to be a clean machine, because you want to keep it clean going forward. You want to have that base image and practice that methodology going forward, that it is a well-managed machine. So for a well-managed laptop, if you want to take a Flex App layer offline, you indeed will be able to do so with this new feature that also supports Intune, and it supports, which is Microsoft Endpoint Manager. It supports SCCM. You could even stick the, what's that?
Workspace ONE.
Workspace ONE. It supports all the scenarios there to host an application and then to bring it offline or to attach it. This new feature is called, drum roll, many of you have been hearing it first if you haven't already seen the leak on social media last week, Flex App 1. So it containerizes a layer on one executable. That one executable that can then be distributed not only by prior, that was always coupled with Profile Unity, always. Now it can be distributed the ways that I said. It can be done with Microsoft Endpoint Manager, Intune, SCCM, and you can simply apply those to a group of desktops, and you don't have to use Profile Unity to distribute the packages. As said, this is a feature set. For advanced features, you still have that capability to distribute the packages through Profile Unity, elevate privileges, whitelist and blacklist if something's going into a base image for RDS or for Windows Multi-Session 10, fix up the registry. So all those options are still there for advanced use cases. But to quickly get an application out, say there's a global pandemic, right? And this was one of the reasons why we worked on this. And you've got to send users to work from home and they need access to an application. This is, bar none, one of the quickest ways you'll be able to distribute an application. So you package it up, ultimately containerized on one executable. The endpoints may have never had Liquidware on them before. Liquidware, nothing. And when the user double clicks on that file, the application layer will show up and it will look like it is natively installed on that endpoint. And if it's a well-managed machine, those can go offline and you can practice that work from home, work from X, work from anywhere. So that's Flex App 1. We told you guys a little bit about this before this, Jeff and Marius. What do you guys largely think of what we're doing with Flex App 1 from what you know? Maybe you don't have hands-on yet, so I'm not asking for anything in that area, but what do you think about the concept?
I think it's a really great approach, because I was actually, after we talked about this last time, I was actually looking into some of the, because we are of course doing a lot of cloud-based deployments, so we're using Intune Endpoint Manager to actually handle a lot of like application logic in terms of installing newer versions of applications. And we have like a couple of PowerShell scripts I was looking into, which had like 200 line different scripts to actually clean up applications before we actually upgrade to a newer version. So of course, using this would be a great time saver just to deploy new versions of applications.
And I think that's an important point that you didn't mention, Jason, is that this works just like Flex App, the way App Attach, those things work, is that XE holds the filter drivers. So there is something installed, but it's silent, doesn't require reboot, real tiny. The other side of it is that XE also holds the VHD, and it's mounting the VHD to the local workstation. And so there's no tattooing of the app into the operating system. If you revoke access to it, it's completely clean. No, don't have to worry about finding those registry entries, some left behind files and folders, all that good stuff.
I think I'm sharing my screen. Some of these still have finishing touches to put on them, right? You can see this?
Yeah,
Yep.
you can see it.
This
and of course,
is
having like no agent install is an important aspect just to start deploying applications.
Yeah, it's pretty huge. I mean, you don't have to have anything on the endpoint. Now we will put a service on there and everything, but this is not like putting a big, what I would call a fat client player on the endpoint. So there's no agent to install. It's all this double click and runs. You do need to have admin access. Most laptops do. So right now you have to have admin access, and just the permissions of UAC will come across. Most users know what to do with that. They'll click it and it'll play there. So again, this keeps your base images clean. So it's a good way to distribute applications. When you keep your base image clean, you don't get Windows rot. So people are like, well, why is this different than just installing an app on SCCM or on Endpoint Manager in the first place? This is all contained. It's one file. You actually turn off our filter driver and it's gone. That's how clean it keeps the image. So goodbye Windows rot, and you can do a live app update to a Citrix server, RDS server, and the apps will appear. No need to reboot. So it gives you additional cloud options to be able to push these packages out there. Again, we're pushing out one file. That's why it's named Flex App 1, one of the key reasons. One file per app. And when you push that out, it shows up as an application layer out there, and it does give you that ability to run offline as well. But we see this as a huge win, say for Amazon workspaces environments. If you're familiar with those environments, or any RDS environment, you usually have a lot of hoops you have to jump through to modify a base image and then update that. So it may take you weeks to get an application out there. And with Flex App 1, you would be able to update and send the layer out right away to the servers that you point to and have those show up right on those while keeping your base images clean. So again, it's a feature set of Flex App. It is a Flex App and Profile Unity are still there for all the advanced cases, but we believe that this is a big game changer in the industry. this is where, like, how easy the integration is with Microsoft Endpoint Manager. You simply point to your Flex App package and then you distribute it out to your people in the field. We can do that to where it shows up obviously in the company portal part of Windows 10. So if you're leveraging company portal there, you have a list of your Flex App packages. In this case, you're doing a self-service store for your users. These are just apps that we've tested out here, but the user would be able to self-subscribe to any of these apps once they're in their company portal, and to bring those. And once they launch those, again, if it's a well-managed machine, they would even be able to take those offline. User interaction is minimal here, but you have some controls that show up down in the control panel where you can stop applications if you have an error or anything, and you can also quit. And when you do that, you're back to your base image or to the image that you had prior to any Flex apps on it. So it's a bit of a sneak peek. Even these slides are a bit of work in progress, but the main story I'm telling you will not change in the next 40 days before we ship this. I'd like to see if we have any questions from the audience on Flex App 1. You know, do they feel like this is a compelling new feature set and unique in the industry and could be used to the advantage of their organization?
We do, Jason. We've got quite a few questions and comments going here and even back a little further. Ray Davis talking about Flex App 1 said this is a great improvement. He also said that we're about to go through a demo and we really need this. We have a lot of applications. We do have legacy apps. What is your experience with compatibility?
Oh, great. Just to double check, Ray, I don't need to share my screen anymore.
Okay.
If you want to go back to our cameras, maybe you already had. Our compatibility rate with this does not change. Jeff was one of the first to notice this. This is just like Flex App, but offline. And so our compatibility rate doesn't change. We're still in the 90% plus range. And mainly that's because there's a few things you would never want to Flex App in the first place, like virus detection software. It needs to run at a lower level and some other things. But there's very few applications that you can't Flex App. Some applications we may have a workaround or a special recipe for. You know, always with any of these packaging technologies across the board, right? It's going to be licensing is going to be the unique thing that you need to work around or take into account, and all those use cases are different. Licensing for the application itself.
And on top of that, you know, it's typically not even so much will Flex App be able to package it. Like you said, sometimes you need a recipe or whatever. But at least I have found that is few and far between compared to an App Volumes or a Unidesk or Citrix App Layering. I think I forgot where I was going with that, but yeah, that the compatibility
rating, yep,
yeah, is really there. There's the other side of it too, is that, you know, this, as far as my concern is, this makes Flex App touch every use case now at this point. You know, if you want the advanced filtering, which is a huge part of what Flex App delivers, to be able to take advantage of the profile Unity filtering, that's still great for you know, virtual environments, RDS, virtual desktops, you know, whatever the case may be. But when, you know, the downside of all of these types of technologies, except for AppV, was that you could not take them offline, right? And if you didn't have an internet connection, you didn't have access to your application. And that's been, like I said, essentially everything in this category. And now that's taken care of. And it not only is it taken care of, it gives you the flexibility of, you know, like you've mentioned, using any delivery mechanism that you want for these Flex App 1 applications.
We got a question. How's this different than ThinApp then? Great question, because ThinApp from VMware could do this too. You could take things offline. ThinApp is isolation now, so it's different technology. You know, you're almost always going to be in that bubble with ThinApp, and with Flex App, your compatibility rating goes way up because your applications are not isolated. If they run natively on a Windows machine, there's a great chance that it can be made into a Flex app. And so that's where we get that high compatibility rating. If you need isolation, there's use cases for that. Flex app's usually not the technology to do that. We've got micro isolation. Don't be confused, that's a different thing. Micro isolation just keeps Flex app layers to where they can interact better with each other in case there's a conflicting DLL or something like that.
Just to add on that, of course, when we're looking at FinApp, there hasn't been that much active development on their product. I've looked at the latest release now. It's in those guys. One of the things they bragged about was being able to virtualize Internet Explorer in a self-contained package, and I still see that they still have some bug fixes for that, but it's not so much active development with what I see from their product.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything out of them in a while. And by the way, Profile Unity can distribute thin apps, app Vs. Of course, the interaction there is with Flex app. So we are the single point of command for any type of application format.
All right.
So,
got some
I think the other thing too is that when you're packaging for Flex app, you're not having to repackage for Flex app 1, right? I mean,
right.
It's just
you're not. You can take that and turn it into a Flex app.
Yep. Yeah.
Speaking of packaging, we've gotten more news, right? You guys were leaked this news as well. Flex app automation, and this is also in the same time frame, about 40 days from now, we will make available to the market Flex app automation. And what this does is it takes the tedious packaging of applications when you have dozens or hundreds of apps, and then you can set those up to run, say, over a weekend, and leverage multiple packaging machines. Come back in on a Monday, and you can look to see all the success rates that you had there, and immediately begin your testing, and then go live with them to distribute them. They immediately will show up in Profile Unity when they're successful, and then you can start your testing and then go live as quick as possible. So Flex app automation also coming from us in about 40 days. Have you guys seen anything like that out of any other vendor? The automation fact, I think, I'm being honest, I think app volumes might be doing a little bit in that area, but not to the degree we are with multiple packaging consoles.
They're doing more process. I don't know if it's automation.
I'm still looking to when Unidesk is going away from the Silverlight portal. That's I think that's the biggest thing I'm looking ahead from there. But
I've been waiting for that for.
How long has it been there now? Like 5 or 6 years?
That was it. That's how it started. So it's a decade, over a decade now of Silverlight.
Yeah, I actually saw a blog post, I think it was 2 weeks ago, saying that, okay, maybe in the October, November timeframe, it's going to be gone, I think.
And we will all celebrate.
But no, I haven't seen any other same type of automation. And as we talked about last time, because we use a lot of other tools to do automation, but not just imaging in that sense, but working with cloud infrastructure, we use automation tools there like Terraform to actually provision infrastructure and services around it. But of course, we've been missing out on that last piece to actually handle all those applications. Of course, being able to reuse the same, let's say, automation framework that we have and just add application packaging as part of the same equation, that's going to make things a lot easier for us.
And it eliminates another barrier to entry. That's always one of the big arguments I've always said. I've already got all of these packages done. I don't want to have to go through and have to repackage all of these manually. Now you don't have to. Right. You can just suck them in, boom, next day.
When you're doing
deliver them through Flex app.
When you're doing a challenge, Jason Maddox on this, I said, well, when you've got 20 apps or less, what does this benefit? So there's not a huge benefit there because you still have to tee this stuff up. You have to go trace down the silent switches, and the guys that are hardcore application packagers know how to do this stuff. They'll download the silent switch, publish docs from, say, Adobe or whatever when they're packaging that up, and they put it in, and so we know to look for that throughout that. So there's some setup to be done still because you've got that. But when you're talking about dozens or hundreds, this makes it far more efficient.
Keep in mind, in all seriousness, most companies already have all of that set up. If it's being delivered through SCCM, Workspace ONE, Intune,
They
they're
already do
already
that.
there.
They already do that today. Yeah.
So it's literally going to be suck those packages in, so you don't have to track that stuff down.
Yeah. So if you
it's
want to switch
brand
over,
new or something,
Yep.
that's different. But for those hundreds and even I'll go as far as to say thousands of apps that a lot of these companies have, they're already packaged, they're already silent in everything. So it's just a
so it
matter
makes
of
it easy for them to convert
yes.
to so what we've preached, since Flex App is keep your base image clean. That way you avoid all Windows rot, and then just switch applications out, no matter how you deliver Windows. And if you want to switch from traditional application installs, there's never going to be an easier time than when we have the automation for big enterprises.
So two things I do want to mention. One, the big one is don't ever try to layer or deliver through Flex. I don't care. Windows hotfixes. Bad things happen. The other one is Office, because people always ask about Office. Technically, Office can be done. The problem is the way Microsoft does its licensing of Office within Windows itself is what really screws it up. It's not that FlexApp, Unidesk, App Volumes can't do Office. It's that Microsoft, its security on those licensing files, it rejects it. And that's why when it gets delivered, that people have problems with it.
Yeah,
So
we've got even a workaround of a special recipe, but we recommend if there's 100% of the people in your organization going to use this, put it in the base image.
Yeah.
Because you have to get into special KMS server permissions and licensing.
Yeah, it gets really cuckoo, and I know that's always been a huge ask through the years, and it's just it's not the technology, it's the way Microsoft delivers that licensing file and how it encrypts it and everything else that is the problem.
Ray, let's make sure we're getting to any questions that may be out there.
Sure, yeah, we've got a few. This one came in earlier in the conversation, and this is from George, and he said, we are currently using FlexApp in our DAS offering and are loving the solution for many reasons. One question that came up, can FlexApp support layering apps which store data in program data or require specific runtimes to be included or require device licensing, i.e. QuickBooks?
Our experience is yes, QuickBooks should be relatively easy. So the packaging process takes a lot of that into an account. So it's recording everything that changes on the packaging machine. So and you need to make sure that your requirements for that app are indeed available. But our experience is that should be good. Now, if you're seeing something else or have a tech support issue, you can let me know that right here in live and conflict with my answer on that. But you should be good to go. There may be a special recipe or something that we need to follow for a special use case. Jeff, would you concur?
Yeah, I know QuickBooks has always been a little sketchy, again, because of the way they license the product on the machine, which it used to be based on like disk ID or some crazy thing. So I know in the past we've had to have recipes before. I don't know if that's still true because I haven't done QuickBooks in a long time in any sort of packaging scenario, but that would be about it. But yeah, if you get, like you said, it picks up anything that changes. You don't even have to have an app as a Flex app. You could be delivering files and folders, registry entries. But yeah, I mean, there's always those little things that you do need to be aware of. And, as always, it's test first, right?
Let me also point out that this is a great reason why a lot of times Profile Unity and Flex App work well together, because you may have something you need to pick up in program files. And I know I'm going to date myself again. Peachtree Accounting used to save stuff out similar to QuickBooks in program files. And that's where your little database file would go. Is the last place you would expect it to be, but it was in program files, I believe, not in documents. But with Profile Unity, that's not part of the profile to pick it up and make it portable. Usually, program files is not, but you can include that. and you can go through and include anything that is in system root or system drive, any path that you put in, and it'll append and become part of the user's profile and go across. So to make an app work that is not well written, it will pick up anything and make it stick in the user's environment, and they would have that going forward. So that might be a great place where the complement of Profile Unity and Flex App would make an app work 100%.
Or even if you want to deliver, you've got one app that needs to be delivered to 2 different departments that have 2 different config files. They need it configured differently. That's where Profile Unity can come in, detect, oh, this is accounting. They need this config file copied down there. It's not part of the Flex App package.
Mm-hmm. Ray, follow up to that or another one?
Yeah, here's another one. Robert asks, this was in regards to Flex App 1. So can you only install apps with Flex App 1 that do not need administrative privileges to install?
Currently, Flex App 1 does require administrative privileges on the endpoint because that's where the driver's coming in on the endpoint. May not be the case once you have that first app down in our system driver there. I'd have to check.
Yeah, so I think the key is to everyone to realize that when Flex App or Flex App 1 delivers a package, there is no installation. I mean, Flex App 1 has initially the service and the filter drivers, but the app itself does, it's not doing an actual install of the app. So if you have those drivers already down on a workstation or whatever, that app will just simply run. It's not going to try to reinstall or anything.
It may be a case where you get your first Flex App 1 down and you do have administrative privileges for that user, maybe remotely even or something like that, and you okay it. And the next Flex App 1 that comes down of a different type would not require that. I would have to check, but should be a workaround for that.
And what I was actually told on the side was that you can create a package, which is basically an empty Flex App 1 for right now, deliver that ahead of time so that, like a user doesn't have to install.
So the services they're
are already there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So we don't have a fat client, but we do have services that run. You'll see the Flex App service running if you look at services.
Because you got to have the filter driver on there minimally, at least, to be able to blend the C drive and the VHDs that are being delivered.
Right. Other approaches we've seen in the market to try to do what we're doing, it has a fat client, has to be maintained and installed.
Nick chimed in and said Profile Unity user rights elevation.
There's that as well for that first run. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that would work.
Yeah, and that way
So we need to write down. We need to write down the solution.
Jeff.
What's that?
Would it work offline if Profile Unity was offline? I guess if the settings were already on
user rights elevation, it would.
Yeah,
but remember, it only needs to be
already on the endpoint because it's run once. Yeah, and told the endpoint what it can do and can't do administratively. Yeah.
Yeah, as long as
the initial config.
Yeah. Who said that, Ray?
Nick I think he's one of our partners, Nick Pagano.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Up at ahead in Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get Nick on a unplugged session.
Oh boy,
he's already on one, but as a panelist.
Ken asked.
We had him, we had him on Thrivecast, and he, I wasn't there, but DJ told me that he was a handle. He was something to handle. So you don't want to be careful.
So Ken asked, can Flex App, not Flex App 1, be used to package print drivers?
Yes. Yeah. Right, Jeff? We've done that?
Yeah.
I'm pointing back to Jeff because, Jeff, he worked with us for a while.
It can. I'm not going to say it's 100% that it will do it, but it can do print drivers. Like I'm not going to say it can do every print driver, but this is the one product that can do print drivers. Absolutely.
By the way, for print driver specialty and use cases, I mean, we're alliance partners with ThinPrint and with Uniprint or whatever they're calling themselves these days.
Yeah, so it's I don't think it's 100% that, you know, it will be able to all do every print driver. But the ones that people are most concerned with, like the Adobe PDF drivers and things like that, absolutely, it will do those. In fact, when you look at the packaging console, you can see the drivers that it will install if it's picked up any.
Yeah, we're doing a delta differential when we're capturing stuff, and so when you're bringing it down at package time, it should stick. Right?
And when they do get installed, they do show up. There is a little bit of Liquidware magic sauce going on in the background to make not only get them installed, but to then get them to show up in the session for the user. So.
All right. So Ray D mentioned, he said, app layering for Citrix is just too much overhead in his opinion. So talking back to the Flex App 1, so this is the next option. He also said, is it just me or does this seem a lot more simpler than Unidesk, AKA app layering? Not to be the bad guy, but it seems a lot lighter. Thoughts?
If you're looking for application delivery and only application delivery, that pretty much eliminates the Unidesk, the Citrix App Layering, because it is first and foremost image management for, you know, whether it's PVS, MCS, you know, it can be used in Horizon View, you know, those images, those types of things. The elastic layering is I mean, it works and it works for the way it's supposed to work, but you don't have 99% of the features, and it does require that you've created the image with Citrix App Layering. So from strictly an application delivery standpoint, absolutely, this is a far superior and easier way to go.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. We had the hindsight of looking at where the market had rapidly evolved in those first few years, and we went straight after only applications. So yes, we firmly believe it is far more straightforward than Citrix App Layering for applications.
Yep.
So Robert asks, so does normal traditional Flex apps need to be or need to have an internet connection to function on a laptop? Is the new Flex App 1 solving the laptop with no Wi-Fi problem?
Yes.
It can, but you know, we wanted to push this as hard as we could. We're still saying well managed. We'd like that to be a clean machine. So if you call support and you've got machines that are out in the field that have been out there for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and that they've installed everything on them, we're going to tell you that's not a use case that we support. We've seen it work, but we don't want to get into one individual on the West Coast at nighttime can't, because we've been in the business of powering virtual environments. So we're willing to say for clean machines, for well-managed machines, Flex App 1 is a great use case for offline. So you got that asterisk there that says they should be well managed.
Come on, we're all technologists. We don't listen to the marketing people like that.
Yeah.
We do it and do it anyway.
Yeah,
And that's me
I'll
saying
hear
it,
it.
not
I'll hear it
Jason.
from the help desk if someone says it's working for 5,000 users, but for 10, it's not.
Yeah, but I mean, really, that's what people are going to look at Flex App 1 for is those offline use cases.
Yep.
And
a lot of machines
always,
are well managed these days. I mean, you have to be for security parameters to be enforced. So,
but I mean, in the end, I mean, it's you know, as with anything, right? I mean, you could even push out an install of an application and it may not install correctly. I mean, SCCM, Intune, they do not have 100% deployment records for application. It's just the way it is.
Right.
You know, but if it was me and I'm looking at that, absolutely, I would put Flex App 1 in there to definitely test. Now, it needs to be on the machine before it gets out into the field. Let's just keep that straight. But once it's off the, you know, off the network, off the internet.
Yeah, and if the person has admin privileges we'd support that use case. It doesn't have to be online for that. Yeah. But yeah, if they're a standard user, you need to run it once as admin privileges, and then with admin privileges, and then you'd be good to go. But for anybody who has admin privileges, they'll be able to grant the UAC and to run that administratively, and then you're good to go anyway.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even rely on the end users installing that, even that service and the filter drivers. I mean, if you can, I mean, I think, you don't want to give admin rights where you don't need to.
Yep.
Either elevate them in some way to get that, to get those on there ahead of time, or, whatever it takes. But yeah, you don't want the person to be
endpoint
running
managers filling that need these days too for remote workers to be
Yeah.
able to run that first package administratively, and then you're good
Yep.
to go.
So.
All right, so Dennis asks, if the agent is inside the FlexApp 1 package, if Liquidware fixes bugs in that agent, how does the code get updated to a fixed version in all your tons of apps?
Yeah, we'll supersede the agent. We'll look at and make sure we have the latest agent. So once you update that agent, the services basically that are contained in the FlexApp 1 file, and that user runs a newer FlexApp 1 file, it can be a different application, but we'll still look at that service and we'll make sure that it has the latest service on it. We'll replace the service if it has been updated.
And it won't downgrade when the next app runs with the lower version of the service. And as I'd mentioned, I think Jason has mentioned, you can get, I'm not going to say agent because it's really not an agent. It's a service and filter drivers. Those can be delivered without a full-blown application ahead of time. So, you would want to take advantage of that, so it's updated ahead of time. But absolutely.
Well, one thing that
it will upgrade and you'll be on your way.
Marius?
One question that I had in terms of update logic. So let's say that you have a version 1 of a FlexApp package running on a computer, and I'm guessing there's some configuration there looking at the file source if there's a newer version at some time. So let's say that, okay, if I publish a version 2, will the service run on an
we'll
interval?
replace it. Yes, we'll replace it.
All right, going back to the printer driver question, Ken added, I connect to a Windows print server to download the server's drivers to a parent image. As to the point of FlexApp, parent image modifications are painful.
Yes, they are. Again, I'm not going to guarantee 100%. I don't think Jason, Ray, you guys would either with the print driver side, because those are always funky, because print drivers they're either programmed really well, they're either programmed really bad, and everywhere in between. Again, in getting them from the print server, that should be, I mean, I've, at least in my experience, I've never had a problem when they've been downloaded from a print server, because it just keeps it up to date. Maybe that's changed since the last time I've done print server actual setup and stuff. But yeah, I mean, give it a shot. Again, it should work, may not work for everything. The best I would say is you got to test. You got to test it.
All right, we're getting close to the, we are past the end of it here, the Unplugged session. I want to just recap what we spoke about today, so you can know that this recording will be alive if you joined us later. So we talked about application layering. What was the first time we even heard about application? What was it proposed to solve? And then we talked about how application layering has evolved. We talked about some of the other leading solutions that you might have access to. And the way that we are partners with Citrix and VMware, we always encourage you, because we're partners with them, and we don't want to make them upset. But no, we always encourage you to use the licenses you have. With VMware, you get app volumes in certain stacks, but other stacks you don't. And if you look at what you get in that enterprise stack, if you want to fall back to one of the other lower, lesser price stacks and choose Liquidware, you can do that. With Citrix, I believe you can get Citrix App Layering across the board, but as long as you're on platinum support or something like that, you access all that and all the other bells and whistles. But it's a different use case. we focus on individual applications. So there may be a need that you have to use the two together, and some of us use us instead of Citrix App Layering because they just use provisioning services. And then we laid on this audience the brand new news of FlexApp One and FlexApp Automation. And we've not put out press releases on that yet. We've leaked it out to some VIPs in the community who may have told you about it by word of mouth through our inside track group. But then we've discussed that today too. So if you want to recap and watch the video, you'll see that as we went through it. I'd like to thank Marius. I'd like to thank Jeff both for being on board with us for this session of Liquidware Unplugged. And Ray can tell you further information. Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks. We definitely did record this session. We'll post that to our community website, community.liquidware.com. So keep an eye for a link to that recording there. We'll also make sure we email that out to all of you. Anyone that had a question that maybe we didn't have time to cover because there were a lot of comments and a few questions that maybe we didn't get to, we'll forward those on and make sure we get those answered offline as well. So thank you to everyone for joining us, and until our next Unplugged session, be well, and we hope we see you back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to the audience. Take care.